grow. I've been high, I've been low.
I feel like
I done
almost when we
picked it, been
first started
whole.
doing
I done
them here,
prayed and been prayed.
we were like trying to get to the recording part as quick as possible. And I feel like what we did today was incredible. It felt really good.
Yeah, we had a very nice conversation.
It felt really good, yeah.
I do like that we have been in the last couple weeks very on top of like making time to just talk about the podcast and what we want from it before we just jump into recording.
Yeah.
And then we kind of communicate throughout the week about like the content and stuff and like what we've gotten done. Like
It's almost like we both get to like an agreement. Probably some of what we just talked about would have been great to have recorded, but like now we need to like now we're at a space where like we feel like we've like worked out the kinks or whatever, and there's like a direction that we're going.
I agree, because it's like we know what we want to talk about today and how to go about it, and it just comes when it comes, you know. How are you doing on the Book of Secrets?
I'm very much enjoying the Book of Secrets. The beginning of it was a little spiritual, like hard to get into because it's just like you're throwing around a lot of words. But I feel like once you get to like the second, or there's 15 secrets, right? Once you get to like the second or third one, they start to be a little bit more practical.
It's been a very long time since I've read that book, so.
The one I popped open today, which is on to number 6, is Freedom Tames the Mind. Your mind is like an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
And it talks about how like in India they call the mind the wild elephant, and that trying to tame it is like putting a stake in the ground. It's not gonna. And then it talks about Buddhism and being like the monkey that is just like running around from window to window. Terminology like that I can relate to.
Yeah.
I'm sure that resonated with you when you read that one.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely really, really enjoyed that book. It has been a while since I've read it, so I won't dive into it like you can, but I know I took stuff away from that.
I'm just excited to see like where it goes, and it just kind of opens you up a little bit more each time. I'm also just kind of just like retraining into that habit of reading some pages. I think it helps and just points you in the right direction. And we talk about effort all the time, and it's like it's not like the same as a task as going to the gym or something like that that's like requires physical effort. Like you can kind of just sit down. It's a great way to start your morning. Just like point your headspace in the right direction for the day.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about routine and stuff. It'll be out by the time this episode comes out, but starting like me and you have been talking about doing more content, and like I did the morning routine thing the other day, so everybody can kind of see more into what I do every day, the 5 things that like really help me start my morning off right. I think you're really starting to figure out what your routine is. Seems like you're getting there from the outside. Like
for me, I think right now I'm trying to focus on being present, because I know that like between this and like just wherever else kind of like my life is going to go, I know that eventually something's going to come along that maybe doesn't allow me to do it in the same way I'm doing it right now, because my schedule is fairly open. But that really allows me to lock into the present, to be like, now is the time for you to work on yourself. It's not the time to like worry about, I want to say like efficient enough with your time, or because that to me is like dwelling on how am I going to figure out how to work through this routine when I haven't even figured it out right now when I have the time to do it.
Yeah.
That's where I try to meet myself today. And it's not always easy, but I was able to do it today, which is helpful.
How's affirmations going?
It's good. It helps. Yeah.
Right? It's kind of ingrained there. I've been doing a lot more of it. When the video I was doing when I was walking in the morning, I've been a lot more vocal about that. Like actually saying them out loud instead of just in my head when I'm walking in the morning, kind of just making it a thing, speaking it out into the world.
Yeah. Know? It's like retraining your brain, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the only way to kind of get rid of that old stuff is to replace it with new stuff, like mindfully, you know?
I think I'm at a point right now where I'm kind of trying to take some of the stuff that I learned already and learn more and replace that. I've been trying to switch up my affirmations in the morning, saying different things, like more goal-oriented kind of on like where I want to be in my life, like come next spring. You know, we were talking about seasons before. I think that's something that's always, since the beginning of this, has been important for me. I told you that story about just sitting outside in October of 22 and just like thinking about where I was going to be in the spring that year, and just like if I put that time in and thinking long-term goals.
Yeah.
And I think that's something with this podcast that we're kind of focusing on a lot more too, especially with making more content. We filmed everything this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we filmed a good amount of stuff for sure. Yeah,
yeah, we have a great time lapse of like the conversation we had this morning.
Yeah, we'll see like a little bit. I guess it's like a behind the scenes kind of like. I would assume that maybe some people who watch our podcast wonder how we do this.
Yeah,
it's probably not as complicated as you think, especially now with with our sound.
Yeah,
but when I lock into the affirmations, because like I said, it's something that I've gone back and forth with, but I'm trying to be diligent about it right now. And right now, I kind of just try to tune into what I'm feeling and apply it to that. But also, I try to, because I know I have a habit of like zoning out, kind of like disassociating. It's like you're writing the same thing over and over. And it's like just kind of like stretching that muscle of what does it feel like to say this to myself? Like you have to feel it when you write it. It's not just a matter of putting the pen on the paper, you know? And I think that points it's a good thing to like point your brain in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. I think for me with some of the affirmations, it's like I've been writing them down for so long. Like I have like a journal or two that are filled with stuff that like aren't in the ones that I have right now, like the last couple. And it's I think the way I feel about it is like I've been saying them long enough, and the reason that I'm allowing myself to write something else and feeling to write something else is because that one is etched. Like, if I need to go there, I can go to it. Like, if I'm starting to have bad thoughts, like the protect your garden is on my arm, I don't ever look at it anymore. But, like, I know it's there, and it's, like, one of the first things I go to.
Mm-hmm. Because it's like, I think you're always trying to, like, discover more about yourself. And this thing that was talking about, like, unreality. Yeah, the cause of suffering is unreality, is secret number 5.
I remember that one.
You remember that one?
Yeah, because I tortured myself a lot like that.
Yeah, and this one is tough.
That one I think might have been what I was reading when I was in Vermont, and I told you about it because that chapter really hit home.
There's stuff on here about comparing yourself to others and getting lost in your own pain, but it talks a lot about like perception and how you see things. This is exactly what I wanted to, which is he tells a story in here about, I think it was like a makeover show or like a plastic surgery, whatever. And it was about twins. And they looked like exactly the same, but the two of them viewed themselves differently.
Yeah.
The first thing it says is like you're overlooking the actual facts, and then you're adopting this negative perception. And then that perception becomes obsessive. And it just is like, it even like made the comparison of anorexia and like taking yourself out of something. So like it would, how you could show a picture to somebody who's anorexic, and because it's themselves, they perceive themselves as like the most overweight person. But if you showed them a picture of 4 hamsters, they could easily pick out the one that's the most fat. And like he used that as like a way of relating to like how we see our own thoughts and our achievements and what we're capable of and things like that. That like what we see can be very different than what is reality.
I kind of get nervous like when we do these things, like when we podcast, because being on camera makes me feel kind of weird. And like,
me too.
I like always wanted to be like on camera, like my entire life as a kid. Like or
something like that.
Just like I just like to entertain people. Like that's always been fun to me, and I like to talk.
A court jester, you say?
But I mean, like, so it kind of
right.
It kind of makes me nervous sometimes when we do these things. But then I'm like the other day doing the morning routine and like recording that content, like it's new, and I'm trying to embrace that feeling, and then like I said, maybe by the spring of this year, like I'll just be very comfortable doing it all the time. Like, yeah, because I think I always viewed the people that are always recording everything. I was just like so obsessed with yourself, or like with the phone. And
that's how I.
It made me self-conscious. But that's just a reflection of me, and like I had to realize that and just be like, what are you self-conscious?
Also, like
about?
like how many times have you watched people? Like, I'm sure that there's some root of what you do now, like that you saw somebody else do it, and maybe it wasn't in the format that you're doing it in now. And I think a lot of the problem is that, especially because of like social media and stuff like that now, it feels like everything has been done before.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like so much stuff is like unoriginal. And even like when we started doing this podcast, I think in the beginning we started worrying about like, have I said the same thing over and over? Like, am I being unique enough? Am I thinking through my own? And then I think it just kind of comes back to like, be authentic. Never lean towards the way that's like, that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
Or trying to appear to be something that you're not. It's like George Costanza.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm 38 years old, I'm unemployed, and I live with my mother. Like, yeah.
It's just creating something that's different than that.
Yeah, and like I said, and that's why when we started doing this podcast, it was uncomfortable, but we leaned towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And making clips and doing it more was maybe uncomfortable, but we still did that. And now it's like, I think we know that the success of the podcast could possibly depend on us branching out more and sharing more of ourselves and what we do. And that's really scary. Like,
yeah, because we were talking about it. Right now, we're podcasters, and in that sense, like, all that means is that we just record podcasts. That's it.
Well, but also,
and all that goes out is the clips in the podcast, instead of like us like breaking this down into like what it actually goes into what we do, and like because we're trying to treat it like a job, you know, like, so we got to show the whole. We have to visually see the whole thing as like, oh, look at this whole process that we are going through right now,
and virtually like that you see that's kind of what people, because it's just like, well, we want to see more. And how do you kind of develop fans without like seeing your personality? Because it's just like there's also the fact that like if we just sit down and do this, like we could be out being the exact kind of opposite. And maybe for other people, they'd like to see that like, oh, well, that's what they do to get in the right space. That's what they do to record their own podcast in their living room, you know, and maybe that makes somebody think that like, oh, I'm not capable of doing it, but it's like we have a lot that goes into this, but like it's as simple as just starting, because that's how simple it was when we first started,
and it's, I think, pushing through, and I keep going back to this because it's fresh on my mind. It's like leading up into a new season, so you want to like, I just think of the winter as a very brutal time. And maybe that's because of my own personal experiences and like what the winter has normally been like for me. But I just like with the seasons changing and it getting so dark and it's so cold, it's very easy to just be that lax and not like go after it and really truly push to what we're trying to accomplish. And for me, it's approaching this as we just got to keep going and keep doing it and keep doing it, and as we keep doing it, it's only going to get better, you know, like,
and doing it mindfully too.
Manifesting it like to be what we want it to be, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that we've both learned something about the fact that like doing this is, I think, directly in relation to us being better versions of ourselves outside of doing the podcast.
Yeah. I'm always trying to be mindful of like...
But I think that in the beginning we thought that the amount of time that we put into this equals the amount of success we get, versus like mindfully kind of like putting into that, like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it's not guaranteed almost. A big part of why we've been so consistent with this is because we've been so mindful about how we spend the time and where the effort goes into this podcast and what's important and how can we make this improvements like every single week.
And having a goal for down the road of like what it's supposed to be, and just going after that every week when we show up and we record, like we have one of those conversations beforehand, like a meeting, like this is a business meeting, like we're talking about exactly what we want and what's going on and where we plan on being the next time we have this meeting, you know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
Making sure I'm putting in that time for this, because this is what what I'm trying to do right now. Like what you're trying to do right now is like get better at this and get better at being a better person. And it all ties in together.
Well, yeah. And then it's kind of like the better we get at this, the more we can kind of spread the message and know more what that is of in terms of like, we're not going to know what type of like creator you want to be unless you do it kind of over and over. Like, I feel like we're just kind of cracking the surface in terms of what this podcast is going to be.
Yeah, this is episode 40, but it's still very, very young.
Yeah.
We said on the last episode that you're going to be an Emmy award-winning director by episode 673.
Was that the number?
Yeah.
It was?
I remember because I watched the the rollback of it.
Exactly. Come back to. We should just post that and be like, come back to this clip and.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like it feels good to throw that effort into something that seems to be coming back to us and fulfilling.
We sat down before this and we're literally talking about improving the quality of the podcast and what ways we can do it. And the easiest one for us that we came up with was figuring out the camera situation. And as soon as we got everything set up, you just got back from walking the dog, we're about to podcast, and somebody reached out to us about it.
Yeah.
So it's just like talking about it, putting it into the universe, manifesting it, and then putting in the effort.
Yeah.
So it comes back to you.
Yeah.
Because you can't just hope and dream and not put yourself in alignment with where you're trying to be. That's what we were talking about too. Was like
action. Yeah. Believing. It's like believing yourself. It's like trusting yourself. I think you and I have both gained more trust within ourselves and each other. That however long ago it was, we said, let's treat this like it's real. And now we've done that and we've stuck to that. And that's just like, okay, well now how can we keep growing? But also it's just kind of like, it's very important for me. That's just like, you're doing those things that are affirming that this is the person I want to be.
Exactly.
I showed up.
That's why I think like right now, you said you feel like you're in a place where like, this is the time that really matters. And like noticing that and pushing and just being like, right now really matters. Let me show up every day, because in 3 months, 6 months, a year, this is where I'm going to be because I showed up every day. And using the power of that long run goal to really push through and make sure you get to that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And not getting so caught up in like having it all figured out, but having figured out like, this is who I want to be. And I may not be all the way there yet, but I can do X, Y, and Z today, tomorrow, this week, this month, whatever, to make that goal closer to me. And that's why I said I'd like to, absolutely, especially in terms of whether it's career or school or something like that, 6 months, a year from now, I'd absolutely like to be in a different place than I am at right now, for sure. But it doesn't happen overnight. And you kind of have to do little steps, and that also doesn't mean that, okay, like that's the goal. But that doesn't mean that you drop every other, because it's like, you can't just like focus on your career and then expect like your mind to be in a good place, or you can't like to be in good shape, or to have, healthy relationships or solid friendships, whatever you want to call it.
I think that's why it's so important to work on everything a little bit each day. Because we always talk about that 1% better. If you can get better, 1% better in your communication, and 1% better in your mindfulness, and 1% better in like your diet, what you put into your body for one day, like that's 3 things you improved on a little bit to pick up the next day. And then maybe you add something else into there. And
then also, I think just being, from what I've gotten out of a lot of this, is knowing that it's a long game. And that like, if you miss a day, like you don't want to miss a day. But I think people get discouraged. Oh, I missed 2 days in a row. I didn't meditate. I'll just never meditate again. Or, oh, I went a week without going to the gym. I'm not going to. The difference between keeping the habit and not is when you fuck up, I guess I would say, right? In my opinion. Like, you might miss 2 or 3 days without a run, but then you say, like, well, it's not going to help me to go another week or 2 weeks. It's just like, I can start today. And I think you can kind of like apply that across multiple things.
Yeah, I've talked about it plenty of times on here about how habit and routine is so important to me, and not missing a day. I'm still working on being okay with if I don't get something done for the day, especially that chunk of the morning. I'm a lot better than I was at it. I used to really it's not so much of like it ruins the day for me, like everything goes wrong. It's more of I'm in my mind beating myself up because I like didn't do something. And like there are days for recovery. Right now I'm learning that like when I need to take a day off, it's not go for 6, 7, 8 miles. It's do 2 or 3. Do it somewhere where it's not so elevated because you want to go outside and you want to run for 20 minutes. Like, that's fine. But don't go beat yourself up to try and be running 50 miles a week.
Yeah, and I think another thing that, especially, I think this comes from going to the gym, is you should try to stick to your routine, but every day doesn't have to be a push yourself day.
Yeah, it's not a grind it out.
Exactly. And I've totally learned that, because I think in the beginning I was just trying to do that, but then when those days come where you don't really want to go, or maybe you don't feel that well, or you didn't sleep that well, or maybe you're having an argument with somebody, or and like you don't feel like putting in that full effort, or maybe your body's not in a place to be able to do that. It's okay to have an easy day versus like every day being like, I'm not trying to be a fucking bodybuilder.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not trying to be in the Olympics. I'm trying to overall be better.
I went out and I ran a mile.
Some days I'm going to be at the gym for an hour and a half, and then other days I might be there for 30 or 40 minutes. And that's okay. Like it's like, it's more of like, this is who I am versus I have to be the best at everything. Like I'm not trying to run the fastest mile. I'm just trying to like
improve my
get my heart rate. Yeah, I'm just trying to get my heart rate up a little bit. That's all. That's all, guys. Yeah. We talked a lot about like, well, where do you want to be? How do you want to get through the winter? And even though they're separate things, I do believe that one hand kind of washes the other. That the one of me taking care of my body and myself and my mind is the same one that allows me to then take the time to like take the next step in your future and take those little steps and figure out what you want and feel confident about your skill in something. I think that those things directly correlate. And I think it partially is because it just gets you out of your head. But then also it's that I believed in myself. I did that. I trusted myself to do something hard. So now let me do the thing that's maybe hard in a different way. That's like applying to a job or working on your portfolio or writing a chapter, whatever it is.
Yeah, man. It's just key. I think it's key for anybody. Stillness and movement, like, it's essential. And going for those, like, to the gym and like working out or going for a run or even going for a long walk, just whatever it is to get you. I mean, maybe somebody out there doesn't have any anxiety or any, like, they're never in their head. But for me, like, I like to be in my body as much as often because sometimes when I'm in my head too long, it's just we're not going anywhere, It's just like beating yourself up because that's when you're spending time with your ego.
That's
I think
just like what I was saying in this chapter, right?
Yeah.
Is that like when you let your mind be at the wheel all the time?
Yeah, it's so terrible.
It's fucking yeah. Well, if you have, I guess, like, I mean, like I said, not everybody is like us, but yeah, that is fucking that's brutal.
Like, my trauma. Imagine spending like a couple hours in there, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Same. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's hard though sometimes to remind yourself of how I'm gonna feel after I do this. And it's like it's easy to convince yourself that, like, what's the big deal? Today I didn't go.
Yeah.
But I think it's just as important to be able to bounce back because life gets busy and things happen and
resiliency, stretching that muscle.
Yeah, exactly. Like missing a week in the gym is not going to kill you, but going a couple of years without, No, but you know,
if something,
it's better to, like, what's the, because I love this saying, the best time to plant a seed is 20 years ago for a tree.
Yeah.
The second best time is right now.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. So I've got my choice of book for you over here. This is a book.
The black part.
This is a book called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. you and I have been talking a lot about what we kind of want from the future. And I know you're kind of venturing into doing something kind of around this podcast. And you've mentioned that you've thought about writing a book. And it's very quick. It's kind of like The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. That's kind of like 1 or 2 page. It's not even like, I don't even know if I would call it chapters or, but that just like help you think about your work in a different way, push through your like writer's block or whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be applied to writing itself. You let me know what you think, bro. Also, by the way, like Steven Pressfield, I've listened to him on multiple podcasts. And
resistance is fear, but resistance is too cunning to show itself naked in form. Why? Because it is resistance. Let us see clearly that our own fear is preventing us from doing work. We may feel shame at this, and we may feel shame drive us to act and shame may drive us to act in the face of fear. I butchered that. Well, that little clip up there, but
okay. You want to read it again?
Nah, it's just okay. You did that with that book a couple times. You just
like open to the right place.
And it was just a banger.
And that like it's a very quick read. But I think the best way that I think to go about that book is like if you're ever feeling blocked or you feel like you're in that space of I need to push through this, like that's the time to pick that book up.
No mystery. There's no mystery to turning pro. It's a decision brought about by the act of will. We make up our mind to view ourselves as pros and we do it. Simple as that.
That's exactly what we've been talking about. There you go. Right. And I haven't picked that book up in years.
Yeah, I haven't read that book in a really long time either. But
exactly.
That's the way that
you
it's
don't
supposed
decide,
to be, you know?
You know what? Like, I write one word in that journal. Guess what? I'm a writer.
Yep.
I do one set. I'm a stand-up comedian. Mm-hmm. I write one chat. You know what I mean? It's all, like, I do one podcast. I'm a podcaster.
Yep.
You know? I'm certainly a victim of this. But I feel like I'm starting to ease into that, which is, like, for a long time, I thought that I was defined by what other people thought of me or by what my resume said or whatever, you know, yourself on paper. Mm-hmm. And you can view that as your job title, your bank account, how many Emmys you've won. But that, like, you get to decide that. Not like we've had the conversation of how it's like weird for somebody to care about how you make money. Mm-hmm. But like if you say to someone like, what do you do for a living? And then you say, I'm a podcaster. What are they going to be like? No, you know?
I said that to somebody at the wedding this weekend.
Did you?
He asked me what I did. And I was like, I have a podcast. And he was just like, oh, that's cool. What's it about? And I was like, mental health and wellness. And he was like, oh, nice. And then he's from Beacon.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, I said that to somebody, and I've been saying it a lot more. We talked about yesterday, sitting at the bar and like having somebody approach me and being like, "So what you doing now?" And I was like, "Yeah." It was like, "All right, cool."
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes I think you worry about like what the reaction is going to be from other people, but who fucking cares, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
In the long run.
Maybe I just feel it so strongly because for a long time I let that get in the way. That it's like, if you made one short film, you're a director. Or you can apply that in any type of way.
You're a director and an editor, bro.
Director, editor, editor, producer, cinematographer.
Yeah.
Dog dad.
Exactly. All of them, bro.
Yeah, and you can be multiple things. And I think that I spent a lot of my time thinking that you can only be one thing. And that's how this whole thing kind of happens, which is that like you're so set on like I have to be a director and that's the only thing I can be. And then maybe you get so caught up in that it needs to be this perfect path and that's the only thing that you think doing anything else besides that is a failure.
Yeah.
Getting older, I think, just helps with knowing that you can be multiple things. And it also makes you okay with the fact that I'm good at these few things and I don't have to be good at everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think that I've certainly fell victim to the idea that you have to decide what you want to be by this age or by this time, and you have to make this amount of money and you have to do this, and that like that is who you are. And it's just like, even fucking Quentin Tarantino has other hobbies outside of fucking directing movies.
Does he?
He's only put out fucking 9 or 10 of them.
Yeah. Imagine that's what he does.
It's been like 30 years. It's not like you're defined entirely by that. And I think that knowing that you're not defined by that then allows you to, like, I would probably say that, oh, if I want to be a director, I'm not going to film content that doesn't look super cinematic of me vacuuming the room before you get here.
Yeah.
I could be a snob about it, or I could be like, who cares? Mm-hmm. Who the fuck cares?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Just getting the experience and stretching the muscle.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm curious what you think, because you remember how scared I was of any type of social media posting anything in the beginning. And this was my idea.
Resistance cannot be seen, touched, heard, or smelt, but it can be felt. We experience it as an energy field radiating from a work in potential. It's a repelling force. It's negative. It aims to shove us away, distract us, prevent us from doing our work.
As soon as I picked that book up, the word resistance, I identified with that.
Yeah.
Because you know exactly that feeling, whether it's creative or not. Of like,
for me, when I think of resistance, it's like now it's different than it was. But before, it was like resisting, like talking about my trauma, or like, and before that, it was just like resisting.
Was it like resisting doing the thing, or was it resisting change in general?
It was resisting change was a big part of it, because I had done such a big job, a big job of like finding ways to distract myself from like what was bothering me for so long, and not wanting to talk about it or even ponder around in the area of how to work through it. Like, once I started to do the work on myself, and then like saw that I could get better and like continue to do that, and then it all just kind of snowballed into where I got it off my chest. And like that, but like it was all resistance at the beginning. And you know why? Because like it just said, resistance is like what you want, and it's like you trying to force being away from it.
It's trying to give yourself an excuse that is you failing at it. Instead, it's that, oh, I didn't try.
Yeah.
Or it's that, oh, I didn't really put that much work into it. So like I can always do that, you know?
Yeah.
It's a in a way it's a crutch. It's like why does it feel so appealing right now for me to clean my room when I finally sit down to work on some jokes, or I finally sit down to like write, you know, to like, oh, I'm going to write 5 pages today. Yeah. Why does everything else seem so much more appealing? Right? Because it's trying to create an excuse that it's just like, oh, well, you didn't do your writing, but you did clean your room. And I'm not saying don't clean your room, but I'm saying like, if you're not able to sit down and do things, just clean your room beforehand. Don't give yourself an excuse. Don't give yourself an out. Build that trust. That's like, even if it's something, we've talked about atomic habits. If you're having struggle writing, just 10 minutes a day. And don't even set yourself the parameter of like, I need to write about this specific thing. Start there. Like he talks about like just going to the gym, doing one exercise and leaving.
You're there.
Yeah. Just building the habit of going, or whatever it is.
I think a lot of that helps you break out of the mind and into the body, because you're not so worried about what I'm not doing. You're just focused on what you are doing at the moment. And
I think in the beginning, the shortened time allows you to like focus and lock in and be like,
you're really dialed in, and now I'm not. It's okay, go home, but I did this today.
But then I think you start to find that, oh, if I'm telling myself I'm going to read 5 or 10 minutes a day, like I don't know about you, but there's certainly days that I have where I'm like, I want to keep reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to keep the parameter on this, or not that I really don't even set a timer for that, but like,
I know what you mean.
And then
allowing yourself the time to just being like, keep going.
And it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for a half an hour. Yeah, but like on days when I feel good, I don't just leave at a half an hour. You know, I'm just going to keep going. And I think that that's just more about it's like proving to yourself and showing yourself. It's just like, of course, like, and also like why would you trust what anybody else says if you don't believe what you're saying to yourself?
Yeah. Oh, this dude's a Steve. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, the right way.
The right way. That is correct.
Good effing, my brother in Christ. But just like a great way of looking at creativity from what like normally how you trap yourself into.
Yeah. Grandiose fantasies are a symptom of resistance. They're a sign of an amateur. The professional has learned that success, like happiness, comes as a byproduct of work. The professional concentrates on the work and allows rewards to come or not come, whatever they like. Yeah. That's going to be a good one. I can tell. I'm going to very much enjoy that book. I might just read that book like that. Just like pick it up randomly throughout the day.
Sometimes,
and just read a page.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's
just,
what
I'll fold the page in when I'm done with it, you know?
That's what I do with Rick Rubin's.
Yeah.
Or you can you can highlight or whatever. I don't give a shit. Like, yeah, I just opened up to this. As you access more creativity, you are evolving. On the other hand, if you try to use old solutions to solve new problems, your evolution will slow down.
Amen, brother.
Leaning just more into things that make you feel excited and not having to feel like you're in this box.
I mean, I keep coming back to it because it's current to me. It's not going to be current to you guys. And I think that's that's a nice thing about being this far ahead. Well, I can talk about this now, and then like in a couple weeks, it clearly I'll see that it no longer matters to me. Like when this actually comes out, I'm clipping this, I'll just be like, I don't even give a shit about that anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, just it being new to being recording yourself all the time and like trying to get like, I don't know what's a moment like that needs to be recorded and what's not, and like I think that can be a little bit scary at first, getting into that for me.
Well, I think it's also riding the line of everything matters versus nothing matters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And
everything matters.
You also don't want to care
all the time.
But it's also like you don't want to get...
That's what wrestling taught me. Everything matters.
Anything can happen at any WrestleMania. How do I put this? You want to care about it, but you also want to seem like you don't care that much about it.
Yeah.
And I think half of the battle, or maybe the whole thing, is just like admitting that you care a little bit, and that it's not the end of the world, and being like, I care if this looks good, or like I care if this video comes out well.
And the only way to care about it is to actually like make sure you take care of it while you're doing it. And like to me, that can be scary because it's like I don't want to take my phone out and record this right now. I feel awkward, like in an awkward place to do that right now. But like it's okay because at the end of the day, like it's what I want to be doing, and it's the only way to break through doing it. One
of the things I'm trying to work on is that like if I just admit to myself that I care, then nobody can hold that over my head.
Yeah. Be like, I know you care about this, and you're just being like, no, I don't.
No, I don't care about the podcast that I spend hours on every week. Of course I care about it. I care about how every fucking frame looks.
Yeah, exactly.
I want it to be better. I want it to be good. I think that I find myself there in many things, which is that you're scared of putting in some effort, and then maybe not getting the credit or or feeling like you're going to get what you deserve. Versus like, if I'm doing it for myself, what does it matter?
Yeah.
What does it matter if there's 100 likes or 1?
Maybe you should skip going to film school and we'll just make a movie about our lives on the podcast. And like you can just write it. Yeah. And it could be like a comedy biopic, and like we'll just find somebody to endorse it.
You think Marco will fund my film?
You got to write it first.
Yeah,
though.
no,
you
of course. It. That's something I've really fallen away from.
What?
Is like working on screenplays.
Yeah.
That was something I used to work on all the time. Yeah.
Really?
I would write stuff. Yeah. I never like finished like a full movie, but I
That's
wrote
cool though.
I wrote short film stuff and things like that.
Yeah. About what?
All sorts of stuff, dude.
Those are probably very interesting to like
to go back and look at.
Yeah, look at.
They're probably they're on my old laptop.
Yeah. You'd probably be like, wow, I've changed so much. Or you'd be like, wow, this is gold.
Yeah. I wrote a few in college. Like, yeah, I think that's also where I find myself is like at a crossroads of deciding like, oh, if I'm going to go back to school, then I'm not going to try to work in it, or if I'm going to go back to school, I'm not going to film it, and like you can do both.
Yeah.
You can work on your own stuff, and like I think maybe this is a good place to start. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have to get a job working for a movie, and like that's the only thing that you ever film again.
Yeah,
it's like I'm only filming Jaws 2, and I'm done. You know what I mean?
But
like,
that's one thing. Like, yeah, like I never really,
like I was on the set of Jaws 2 filming, and I never took a picture outside of that. Like just only when I was on set.
all of that stuff is just like putting yourself into a box.
Mm-hmm.
Just like one day you can feel like writing, one day you can feel like shooting, one day it doesn't have to be like black and white, label everything. So why don't we talk a little bit about like where we want to be when spring comes around?
Spring for this podcast when it comes around.
Well, I mean, we can the podcast or for yourself. Like that's not. Why don't we do one thing for the podcast and one thing for ourselves?
Okay.
Is that a fair? So why don't you talk a little bit about what you mentioned to me before we were recording?
Like that, I was telling you a story before about in October of 2022 when I first started to meditate and stuff. It was like the first time that I kind of like started to do any sort of work on myself, and I felt like physically I was very not where I wanted to be, and because maybe now looking back on it, I can reflect like, so I probably your body needs to be in shape for you to work on everything else. So like it helps
for sure.
I started there, and like that was something that I knew would make me feel better about myself, and then it's a building block to keep going. I think around that time I just like finished the Untethered Soul, and I was probably reading Atomic Habits, which is why it was so fresh in my mind to just like, we got to grind like a little bit every day. So what does Tom say to John Ralphio at Parks and Recs? He's just like, sometimes you got to work a little so you can ball a lot.
Yeah.
And it
something
was
like that.
Yeah, it was like along those lines.
Yeah.
I was outside raking and just like raking leaves. Like the most mindful thing I'd probably done at that point. Like didn't realize how much time I was going to spend in my head and like what was going to come from it. But like I had manifested a little bit. Like I was just like, in the spring, like this is what I want. I want to look. I was probably like looking at my shadow and like looking at the outline of my body, to be honest, because I do that a lot, and I've like noticed that. So I like when I'm like manifesting, I kind of just do that, and I'm like, this is what I want my shadow to look like, and like
interesting.
It just helps me a little bit, kind of get to that point. I do it all the time.
I want my shadow to have abs.
Yeah, when I'm running, bro, I'm like, I want my arms to look fucking. I don't want to be huge, but like I want to look. I want to look aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah,
that's always been my goal. Mm-hmm. So like, I was sitting there raking and just thinking on it, and like I knew that because the season was changing, and I was reading a lot about spirituality and then like consistency with Atomic Habits. And I was like, this is a big moment for you. Like, if you really want this, the winter's the hardest part of the year to get through. If you can push through that, and then come spring, you're still making these improvements, like you're going to get there, and it's going to look the way you want it to look. And like, I lost a bunch of weight, and I walked outside every single day with the dog, like rain, snow, like whatever it was, we just put jackets on. You got layers, man. It's not the summer where you can't take stuff off, you know? Mm-hmm. So like I would just make sure I pushed through, and that wasn't like a lot. Like it was a walk like around the block, like maybe 2 miles, and then like reading, meditating, push-ups, sit-ups. Those are the only 2 workouts that I did, really. Mm-hmm. I did a couple other things, like just the like light 5-pound weights. That's all I had in the house. But I had that in a yoga mat, and I did a lot of yoga and a lot of stretching. And I think that was big because it allowed my body to be like, oh, wow, like you were so tight and like out of shape, that it made it easier to realize that I needed to implement that. But just doing those things throughout the winter, and then having that long-term goal of like, this is where I want to be in the spring. And then getting to the spring and still doing those things. And that's when I stopped drinking, because I was just like, all right, we made it through the hard part. Like, let's get a little bit better. And that starts here with getting rid of this. and it just snowballs. And I think where I'm at now is like, I know the winter sucks, but like, I'm going to get it done. And my plans now with the podcast and with making more content is to just really be intuitive about like when I should be doing it and trying to be mindful of getting it done and making sure I'm putting time toward it and effort into it. This way, when the spring comes, like we're getting a lot of affiliates programs right now. We just got another one with Find the Good, like for the clothing brand.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways to make money off of this. And I used to always think like, how can I make, like, this isn't a job because I'm not going to be able to make anything off of it. And not saying we're making like a substantial amount of money. Like, we're making nothing off this. We make absolutely nothing right now. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, because if we keep putting in the effort and making the content and doing the work, these programs with these brands are just going to get bigger and people are going to buy into it. And like, once you grow the audience, there's going to be people that want to try the products that we have and like what we can endorse, and it just grows bigger from there.
All of the stuff that we've brought on to be a part of that we're just affiliates of right now, but is like, it's all stuff that if you use the tools the right way, it helps people.
Yeah.
And like in some way has helped us.
Yeah, they're all...
Or that we're at least in support of.
They're all very much centered around what we're doing.
So then I'll say that my goal for this podcast 6 months from now is for us to be at least sponsored by one thing.
Sponsored
one
by
company.
One thing.
Yeah. Where it's like, we're not getting paid based on like how many we can get somebody to sign up, or commissions, affiliate, or whatever. Yeah, exactly. We can make money that way, and it's a totally viable way to do that. But like, for us to say like, this episode is brought to you by blank. And like, we've had, like, Will has been a huge help. He's still our first official sponsor. We stand by that. But at the same time, that's a really good thing for us to look towards. And it's okay for it to be something that's like I said, that is in that range of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'd like to be like at least a quarter to halfway to like finding a like real demographic of people that are into this and following this and about this podcast, to grow our audience to that point where like I said, we've talked about it. I don't care about having a bazillion followers. Like, want people that fuck with us because they like what we're doing and they can get behind like us sitting here and just being open and talking about our lives and the things that have helped us and like what we're going through and how we work through it. And maybe that's advice for them, maybe it's not, whatever it is. But like, just to grow that kind of a base like audience that just I like, we just want we want people that fuck with
us. I think what you're trying to say is we want to connect. You want to connect with people who are looking for this type of content. Yeah. And especially in today's day and age, there's so much stuff to sift through. Yeah. There's a lot of like mindless bullshit clickbait that we'd like to connect more with people who this could help or who are just fans or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to grow the podcast. Yeah. I want to make sure that we're
Think about where we were last October, dude. We would have taken like 10 views on any video. And now we get, and maybe some of it's us, whatever. I don't give a fuck. We get 10 views in like a day. Yeah. And like, that sounds like nothing, but like, that's where everybody started. Yeah. You know? It was. Are we going to focus on how much better we are? Or are we going to focus that we're not fucking Mr. Beast? Yeah. Like, no.
Exactly. I'm trying to work on what we're doing here, you know? Yeah. It's like, I was listening to the podcast I sent you of Jared and Evan is like brand new.
Okay. So I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, it's very recent.
I should listen to it.
But Jared was talking about like how he's been doing this for like 6 years, and like until he made that one video that got like 15 million views, like he had videos that were just sitting on like 90 views. And I was like, we have 90 views on videos. I was like, that's how I know we're going the right way. And nobody's going to knock that. Like,
no, but also it's just that we have to decide it's real, you know? Yeah. And that's what we did, and that's what we've been doing. And we had to decide to make a podcast. Yeah. We had to decide that we wanted to do this more. And like, we had to decide that we treat this like a job. Nobody else is going to tell us, like, people can be fans or do whatever, but nobody's going to hold our hand and be like, spend more time on this and it'll grow more.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though we know that that's the case, you know?
think about it too. We're at episode 40 right now. So by the time this episode comes out, we'll have 14 weeks in a row with an episode out. Yeah. And that means by the time we get to week 14, when this comes out, we'll probably have enough episodes to
It'll be more than that.
20 straight weeks out.
Mm-hmm. If we did the math, if it's half the year, it's roughly 25, 26 weeks. Like, how many episodes in a row would we have at that point? That's,
let's say by the end of winter, by March 1st, we'd
be at 65.
65?
If we put out an episode every week.
Like, let's be recorded till like episode 75 by March 1st.
Why not?
We can get that done.
Yeah.
I wrote that in a journal in January that I wanted to put out 75 episodes this year. We might not put out 75 episodes this year, but we will be at episode 75 by the end of this year. Or by like, not the end of this year.
By like
a couple months.
Spring.
Yeah, by spring. By spring.
6 months from now, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Okay, so, all right. Well, that's like our podcast ones. What's your personal goal?
This is my personal goal.
So then how would you apply that to yourself then? What's the...
That I have the bubble coming up on my phone, like you're going to run out of storage.
I mean, I like that. It's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
For my phone to be like, hey, man, there's a lot of shit on here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Just like there's so much stuff we could do. You could just like
and make it funny.
You could make a video that could be funny, it could be serious, it could be like whatever you want it to be. Like you can make a video of like you training Eleanor to walk off the leash or something like that.
Yeah. Then I'm just like sprinting after her.
Yeah, it's how you doing? You've been sleeping this whole time. You're very, very polite. Thank you for being quiet while we podcast.
She's still sleepy.
So what's your goal?
I mean, I said it before this podcast, but I'll say it on here. I don't know how to quantify it, but I would like to be mentally stronger 6 months from now. And I mean that in terms of holding myself accountable, with doing physical things, with mindfulness, and most importantly, I think with, I don't know, like if career is the right word, or maybe creativity is the right word, you know, working towards that and kind of just like being, and when I say mental, like just not being like discouraged as easily, like being more determined, having more like self-confidence in myself that like you did that thing, you set out to do it and you did it. And because I think I a lot of times get caught up in, you want the like immediate gratification of a big change or a big decision or whatever. And I think I need to minimize that and just like get a little bit better every day, especially like mentally. I'll also be 9 months sober by then.
Yeah. Sick. You'll have done a pregnancy.
Yeah.
You'll be able to relate to pregnant women in that matter. That I too have not had a drink for 9 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This child has grown.
This child has grown many moons.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I sometimes forget about it too.
Yeah,
but it's just so like normal.
It's not a part of your life.
It's so normal to me now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It just takes a couple weeks to get used to. And then there's a lot of more bumps in the road.
But you have like the landscape to see kind of like what's possible. And it's almost like being more present in that allows you to be more excited about the future.
Yeah.
Because it's like, the more I'm in the present moment, doing things for myself, being a friend to myself, supporting myself, doing things that I care about, like placing my energy into things and people that matter, it's building that evidence to yourself that like I can trust myself, like I'm not full of shit. Like I said I was gonna do this thing and I did it.
Yeah. Give yourself credit for it.
Yeah, giving yourself credit is, I think, a big part of it. Our plan will be to do like a specific episode that references back to this.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a cool idea.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? That we could like come back to like, this is our spring check-in or whatever you want to call it.
I feel like I've been saying at the end of a lot of these episodes lately, but I feel like this is our best episode yet.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good trend to be on.
Yeah.
So you want to wrap the episode?
Yeah, I think we've had enough today, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening.
Yeah,
Hope you
as
guys-
always, check out our affiliate links and our other episodes. If you're interested, share this with somebody who maybe you feel like this could apply to,
Yeah. 40 episodes out. There's a lot of content to listen to. And don't forget, if you're on Spotify, to hit follow, please, please, please.
Yeah, follow us on Spotify.
Or on Apple. And then if you're on YouTube, definitely subscribe.
That's what helps us the most. Yeah.
Subscribe and send us a picture that you subscribed, and we'll repost it on Instagram. Whatever you want. Just let me know let us know. And then comment. Our comment section might be the funniest place on YouTube.
Yeah.
Especially right now.
We want to get something going. Yeah, we post really funny comments.
Yeah.
But if you guys want to join in on that,
it doesn't even have to be about the podcast. Just blow up the comments.
You can write random stuff, random facts. Like it doesn't matter, but like it's fun for us. Like
we like reading them too.
Yeah, it's fun and it's great for our algorithm so that more people. So if you like our stuff, like you would think that you want other people to see it too. So
yeah, man. Well, we thought we'd be here. Episode 40.
Yeah. All right. As always, it's been fun, bud.
All that glitters and gold. I had money, been broke. I've been high, been low. I done picked it, been whole. I done prayed and been prayed on. I fell off and I stayed on. I've been played, but I play on. There ain't shit I can't take on.